Hello everyone, my name is Łukasz Pogoda. I am the employee of the Institute of Public Remembrance and I'm working in the National Education Office. My job is to produce educational board games that tells the modern Polish history. Our most famous board game is a Q, in Polish known under the name of a kolejka. I'm showing you this game as one of the first products of Institute because it is the most famous, has been featured, for example, twice in a Wall Street Journal. It has been produced in many languages. What I'm holding in my hands is a special edition for education market. It has been never sold in shops, contrary to other editions, which has been prepared in many languages. You may see a stamp with a Japanese, with English Q, with German Warteschläge, Russian Ochiret title or La Q, and of course you may see the Polish full name Kolejka. Kolejka became famous because it's a game about the modern Polish history, telling the story about standing in a line, standing in a queue to the shop. It is telling a story about the Poland in the 1980s. Behind the Poland is still behind the Iron Curtain and is coping with great difficulties, economical difficulties, a lack of everything, a lack of bread, lack of meat, lack of whatever you would like to have in your household. And the people are standing in long lines in ahead of shops, waiting for delivery of necessary household supplies. And this game about standing in a queue became worldwide famous, and people started to stand in a queue to buy this game. So that's why we started to invest. We as the institute, we started to invest in more board games because, as the life shown to us, the board games are a great tool telling a history, also the modern history, and the situation they are depicting as a game happened in reality and are even reenacted in reality, like in the case of a queue, which became a good that is not available to everyone and not available at any whim of a customer. We started to publish board games around 2010, and one of our first board games were the game about Polish soldiers fighting in a defense of Great Britain during the Battle of Britain. You may see here the game with a very short name, 303. It's a number of a Polish squadron fighting in a defense on Great Britain in 1930. We published many games about the Second World War. We are aware that board games might tell many stories. Board games are a great tool that might tell stories about life, like Q. But also we know that. But we are publishing many war games because Polish history has been filled with many fights for the independence. Poland many times have been hampered by the other countries, and this fight for freedom is a part of a Polish modern history which needs to be shown to the next generations. So that's why we are publishing not only games about ordinary life, but also about fighting for freedom, for our ability to live in your own country. This game started, what is very interesting, not only as a board game, but it started with a small exhibition about the Squadron 303. And later on, the authors of this exhibition came with an idea, let's add something interactive to this exhibition. So let's add maybe a game depicting the fight of a Poles among the RAF pilots in 1930 during the defense of Britain against the German Nazi fighters. And they created the game, which started as a huge, large-sized, as big as a pool table in game. And later on came an idea, okay, so we have a game which is enjoyable, playable, which fulfills our mission, so we might also publish it as a paper game with a small board inside, instruction manual and pounds and dice. What is interesting, not every board game works well as an educational game. There are many requirements that have to be met in order to use the board game in an education market, and use the game in schools, for example. The game should not last too long, because the lesson has only 35 minutes in Poland. So we have a limited time to use this game during the class. The game should not be too complicated in explanation, because it also takes time. It should be accessible not only to adults, but also to kids like 10 years old, in order to be used during some kind of classes or meetings with additional classes devoted to the modern history. And this game about Squadron 303, as well as the second one in a series called 111, it's the name of a Polish squadron defending the Warsaw in the very beginnings of the Second World War against the German bombings, as well as the A7, a game about defense of Lwów, so-called in English Lviv, a city that belonged to Poland between the before the Second World War. These games are made that requirements are short, are simple to explain. Setup is easy because you only have to punch the cardboard tokens, put the board on the table, and use only a few tokens, a dice, and we can play. And such a game might be a good and might be a great addition to a teacher's curriculum. These games allow us to explain stories of some battles in actions, not only in words, but we can show how it was hard to defend Lviv against the Bolshevik armies, how it was hard to defend Great Britain during the Battle of Britain, how was it hard to defend the Poland against the German bombings. So we can experience the history in some form, not only learn the dates and read about the facts. Also, if we use the queue, we are experiencing the standing in a line, because the core mechanics in this game is standing in a line to a shop in order to obtain some necessary household goods. Unfortunately, queue, despite the great success and absolutely unexpected triumph on the market, because this game sold in 100,000 copies, it's not well suited to a classroom. This game is too long, just too long. It takes about 1 hour, so that's a downside. But on the other side, we don't complain, because this game was so successful that almost every Pole knows the game, and almost everyone in Poland has some chance to recall himself or learn about standing in a line. The older generations has been recalling themselves how they've been standing in queues when they were young, and young people are learning about the history of their parents or grandparents. And what is very curious, but it's a very great news for us, we get many testimonies from the players that they were actually playing with older generations, with their grandmas, grandpas, fathers, mothers, and discussing how it was to live in the 1980s behind the Iron Curtain, because their relatives has been experiencing this deficit of everything during the reign of a communism in Poland. So while this game is not working well in the classes, it's working very well in the families, and it is helping people to remember about the past, about the not so distant communism in Poland. Are these the only games the Institute published so far? Not, definitely not. Besides the queue and besides the simple war games, we've been publishing smaller and larger titles. We've been publishing very simple titles like this, which is called in English Little Pole. It is related to a little poem in Polish telling about which is based on a few questions asked to a small Pole, helping young children identify with a Polish identity. And this game actually is not a big deal. It's just a simple puzzle joined with a memory game and joined with a few exercises. As you may see, I'm showing you now to a camera back of a box, and I hope you see that here you might see a white eagle, an emblem of the Polish Republic. And what children do with this game, the children can assemble the puzzle and get a huge national emblem. On the other side of this puzzle ties, I can show you now. Here are the parts of a white eagle. You may see the feathers of a white eagle. And what's on the other side? On the other side, you may see we have some words. These words are parts of a Polish national anthem. If you assemble the eagle depicted on the box correctly and turn the ties on the other side, you are getting the almost whole text of a Polish national anthem, which you can just learn along with a teacher. With a teacher, because this is a kind of a game, educational tool for a small kindergarten kids aged 4+. So this is for children in kindergarten, not at school, which is a bit atypical for our products, because most of our products are aimed at the teenagers and adults, but we also wanted to have something in the offer for younger children, and this game became an answer to this our need of our office, that we need something also for younger players. So we can teach what is a national Polish emblem. We can teach the words of anthem. We can sing the anthem along to the puzzle. And if children have a problem with remembering some words, we can show them little pictures on a card that they might help remember. It's about rescuing the country. It's about joining together in order to regain the country. We have a shape of a Poland, and so on and so on. Many pictures that are helping how to sing the song, how to remember the words of anthem. Later on, it already has many. It has been created a few years ago. Later on, we created also a game also aimed on children. It's called in English Wojtek the Bear. You might read. We put the English name on the box. The game is fully bilingual. It's about. We have all descriptions in Polish and English. This game is about Wojtek the Bear. The bear that became a part of Polish armed forces in the West. This game tells a story of soldiers that many of them actually has been not soldiers. These were just the people who has been expelled from Poland to the Soviet Russia. After the outbreak of a Second World War, on September 17th, the Russian forces invaded Poland. And later on, they expelled many Poles into deep of USSR from Poland. And later on, when Russia became attacked by the German Third Reich, they released these Poles, hoping that they might join some organized forces and helping in the fight with the Germans. So the Polish commanders had the opportunity to create the Polish armed forces in the West, and they evacuated under the General Anders the army from the Soviet Union through the Persia and Iran actually, and Palestine to the Egypt, and from the Egypt they entered the South theater of war and were fighting in order to help Allied expel Germans from Italy. And this game actually is not about. This is not a war game. This game is not showing children any actual fight. It is actual. This game is, you may say, safe for children, because we might discuss that there is a war, that the war brings misfortune to people, the war brings many bad things to people, but we actually don't see any cruelty in this game. We don't have any, nothing bad happens during the play, so it is suitable to play with children 6 years old or older. This is a road story. It is about the voyage of soldiers from a USSR, from a Soviet Union, to West. They ended and has been disbanded in Scotland, in Great Britain, in 1936, after the end of the Second World War, and many Poles that has been fighting. And the Polish armed forces in the West actually stayed in the United Kingdom or immigrated further to United States or other West countries of the West, because they have no place to go back, because the borders of Poland has been changed. For example, the aforementioned Lviv in nowadays Ukraine has been disconnected from Poland and placed in Ukraine. And many people who fought in Polish armed forces in the West came from eastern partitions of Poland and had no homes to go back, so they stayed in the West. Like this bear. And this bear, I'm telling about the soldiers, and you might ask, why there's some bear in this game and even on a front cover of a box? This bear was a pet of the soldiers. You might discuss if it was good for soldiers to take an animal along them and travel and fight. We can only ask these questions then. But this furry bear has been remembered well as a good companion, as an animal that has been bringing the smile to the faces of our tired soldiers, who often lose everything, homes, families, even health. Many of them have been bedridden with many problems for the rest of life after the harsh conditions of a Soviet Union. And the soldiers picked this bear as a cub, a small bear in the mountains of Persia, took along them and raised as a reined bear, and he was their companion for the rest of their journey from Persia to United Kingdom, to Scotland. So this is a game about the road, about visiting places, and actually the core of a gameplay is collecting memories, and memories related to the bird. So we are collecting memories about what the bird has been doing over the journey. We are not actually participating in any fight. We are just showing the misfortunes of a people that has been expelled from homes, and the bear is a symbol of this expelled people. But if you would like to find more about the fight of Poles during the Second World War in a very multinational environment, which you may have a look at one of our games from the Znaj series. Znaj means in Polish "know the sign." Know the sign because this is a game called Know the Sign Monte Cassino. This game is telling us a history through the images. What is the core of this game? In a box you may find cards with many small images of Polish soldiers, places, arms, equipment, badges of units that has been fighting on the front in Italy especially, and under the Monte Cassino during the Second World War. And actually, to some degree, this game is about the same people that we are meeting in Wojtek the Bear. Now, we might play with all the children and tell them about the history of a Polish engagement in the Second World War among the other nations of the West, because we've been fighting under the Monte Cassino among the Canadians, French people, British, and also many other nations who came here in a larger and smaller numbers. And what is the core of a game? The core of a game is similar to a commercially available game called Double or Spotted, depending on the country you came from. Spotted in the United States, Double in Polish, or in Europe especially. We are looking for the common sign, which is joining two cards together. If you have a look here, you might see the cross of a Saint Benedict here, which is joining these two cards together. But if I take some other card from a pile and have a look at them, what is joining them? I don't see that. Have a look. Maybe you will find what is the same. I'm trying along with you because I'm seeing the back of a card, which is very important, because on the back of a card we have a description of the symbols. And this is something we added to this mechanics of finding common symbol. It is not good enough to find a common symbol and say, the common thing on these two cards is a Willys Jeep. Wow, I found this. The car. The car is the common symbol. Do you see that? Okay, you find it. And you even know the name. Okay, that's good for me. So I can, for example, get rid of a card and give it to my opponent and say, okay, So I know the name of a Willys Jeep, you keep it. I'm taking another card. And for example, if I get one of a system of the rules for this game is that someone is winning if she or he gets rid of all of the cards she or he has at hand, or if she or he gathers all the cards from a table, for example. We have many variants in this game. So let's say I'm getting rid of a card, so I'm putting another card, looking again. I got stuck for a moment, and please remember my opponent is thinking too, what is the common, so she or he would like to get rid of a card too, especially from, he or she would like to get rid from this card he or she get from me. I need to have a look, I haven't prepared that, but okay, and I found. There's some guy in a helmet, but now is the hard part. Okay, a guy in a helmet, I cannot name the symbol, so I have a problem. So I need to turn back the card and read. Who's that? Some guy called Jan Gazur. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So I didn't know the name of a guy, so I have to take the card back. And I failed to some degree. So I'm somehow forced to learn the names. Of course, if someone is hesitant and don't want to learn, she or he won't. It doesn't matter if it's a game or not a game, or if he or she's just a student, a pupil who says, I will not learn, so she or he won't win and she or he won't get a good grade. But still, if someone wants to participate in a game, and if we even give him or her just 5 cards, for example, we can play a game in a 5 to 10 minutes using 5 cards for each player. So one player would get 5 cards, another 5 cards. So sooner or later, someone will learn all the names of the symbols which are common with these cards. Not the old symbols, but around 10, 12 symbols during one play. So that's, even if this is a small amount, only 10 or 12 symbols, we are this teenager, this student, this pupil knows something more about Polish history. And along this game, we are getting a book which has maps of a battle of Monte Cassino, which is describing every symbol in a context, historical context, in a situation what happened. Whereas I have a few sample biograms of soldiers that has been fighting on the front, which later on sometimes became someone very famous in the Polish history, or not, it depends. And of course we have a rule book explaining the rules of a game. So this is nothing very complicated, but something that is enjoyable for most of our children and helps them actually learn something more than only dates. They helps them understand history, learning some images, symbols related to the history, some kind of history code. And actually, this is not a war game, as you may see. It's not a very competitive game. It might be played very lightly. We also have a very large cooperation game. This is called Independence. We haven't prepared we haven't prepared any official English release of this game, because it's packed to a brim with the details of a Polish history, and we thought it might not be very interesting to the foreigners, for people outside of Poland, which are not learning about some facts during the school, or So this game is available only in Polish. As you may see, it's a very huge box. But this game we've been thinking about commemorating the 100th anniversary of a regaining of independence by Poland. And what's inside? And as I said, this is a cooperative game, so we have only two possibilities in a game. One is everyone wins, and Poland is reappearing on the map. We have a huge map depicting the situation of Poland during the First World War, after which Poland took its place on the map of Europe again. So either way, we win together, helping ourselves during the game, or we fail together and the Poland has been not rebuilt because we have been not managing our resources good enough. As you may see, we have a large map depicting the situation of Poland during the First World War, which also might be interesting for our students. This game actually has two variants. On the second side of the board, we have another board. We have a board for a simpler variant. This game has two versions. One is much more complicated. It's aimed at the adults and, for example, students. And it is depicting the fight for the independence in a great detail. We have a lot of cards with actual person, situations, events that happened during that were important for a regaining of independence by the Polish Republic. So you may see a lot of historical images repainted for this game on the cards. And every card is a kind of a mission that we need to fulfill in order to become closer to success and final of a game. But if we turn the board on the second side, we can play a much simpler version, which is this big game takes up to 90 minutes. So it's a game that would be unplayable at school, like the Q shown at the beginning. So we created the author working for Institute of the Public Remembrance created for us a special variant which is much simpler. We have less cards, we have simpler missions, and it might be played within a half of an hour with an explanation, which is also given some kind of experience how hard it was to regain the independence, but of course it's including less historical facts. But still, the game is very interesting, got good reviews, even comparing to say commercial products. So we are very satisfied with this game. Mega huge, super production with customized components like a special dice. You may see we have a dice with little images on. Special customized pounds. So we wanted to create a really shining product that will be very interesting for every players, not only for teachers. And what you can see here is partially punched the board with the tokens from a game. It's just you cannot you don't have an access to a physical copy, so I'm just showing it to you. And what else? We have a year 2020. We have a lot of games in our curriculum. Even more, I haven't shown you everything we have produced so far. We have a few variants of this no design game produced for depicting many other situations. But we're also thinking on new games to our portfolio. This year, okay, I have it. I'm showing you a mock-up, a prototype box. That's why this box is so soft, not looking well. And this is just a prototype printout. We are sending to print a game called Battle of Warsaw. It's depicting the very famous battle between the Polish forces and the Bolsheviks. I mean the forces of a Soviet Union that has attacked the Poland in 1920 and has been defended close to the Warsaw. So that's the name, a Battle of Warsaw. Actually, Russian forces haven't entered the Warsaw, but one of the important battles has been fought under the Warsaw. It is going to be a war game. It's a game more like our games about fighter pilots. This is a game depicting the clash of armies in a small scale. It is maybe not as easy as we would like to have a game for the education purposes. It takes up to 30 minutes and it's rather playable with 12 years old or older children. But still, we wanted to show how hard it was to win over the Bolsheviks, how hard it was to defend so freshly regain the Polish independence. Regain independence in what we are depicting in the independence in 1980, and 2 years later we've been fighting with a Soviet Union for the independence because we didn't want to become one of the Soviet republics. We wanted to live on our own. You might expect I'm returning the box here. I would like to show the components, but these are just finished. We are quickly preparing it to the last, passing through the last stages of preparing to print. The game should be available this autumn. Will be available in Polish and English, and later on we are going to publish second. The title. There's another mock-up. This game has a bit more cryptic name. We see as there is an ORP Orzeł in Polish. ORP Orzeł is a name of a Polish submarine that has been fighting during the Second World War. And as you know, the Poland has been outnumbered and conquered in the beginning of the Second World War. We could not sustain an attack from a Third Reich, Germans, as well as an attack from the other side from the Soviet Union. But we have a few ships that we could use still in the war, and it has been decided to send these ships to Great Britain. Some of them reached the Great Britain just a few days before the outbreak of a Second World War, and some of them escaped, has been not destroyed by Germans, and finally made an attempt to reach the Great Britain to join the Polish army in the west. And this submarine called Orzeł, Orzeł means in English eagle. The eagle is escaping the Baltic Sea in order to reach the Great Britain, and that's the core of a game. We are escaping the Baltic Sea in order to reach the Great Britain. So this is to some degree it's like a war game because we have a conflict, but this is more like a hide and seek game. Our movement, a movement of a Polish submarine, is not visible to a player playing German Kriegsmarine, German forces. German forces would like to find the submarine in the sea and sink the ship, and we would like to avoid the attacks and escape in order to join the forces in the west and fight future with the aggressor. This game will be available this autumn too. Please track our social media. Please visit our websites. If you would like to see more images of this, we are going to release some more stuff about this games soon. Is that all? I think that's the most interesting highlights from our line of board games. It was a kind of advertisement. You may see that I'm telling you that it's a excellent products, and have a look and play. For Institute of a Public Remembrance, the board games became as a kind of an experiment, of just an attempt to create something new, innovative, a tool to teach the history, and as I said, it worked very well. So we are continuing our mission, also publishing future board games. We don't want only to focus on a war, we don't want to focus only on a conflict, but unfortunately this conflict is a part of a Polish history, because Poles many times has been forced to fight for freedom. And Poles very often has been not begging for a freedom, has been not asking for a freedom. They just wanted to fight for this freedom. They wanted to live on their own, not under the rule of a communism or the other countries. We wanted to have our own country, and very often we paid a greatest price for it. So we are showing it through the board games, because this fight is a part of a Polish history. Unfortunately, that's the truth. That's the history behind me and other Poles. But we would like to publish other games. We are thinking about games about some social issues. We are thinking on the games that will show also different ways to work for independence or for freedom. We have in a working, I might say, a game about the movement called Solidarity, Fighting Solidarity. We have I hope you are aware that we have a great movement called Solidarity, in Polish Solidarność, but this movement has also many branches and many smaller agenda within. And there was also an organization which took similar name, because it took a name Solidarność Walcząca, that means in Polish fighting solidarity. It's a movement that was about not only getting together in order to regain the independence and fight for the freedom and fight for the higher human values, but also it was about actually fighting with propaganda, fighting with communism, with everything that has been imposed on Poles behind the Iron Curtain. So this Fighting Solidarity movement has been focused on not on a fight that was an armed fight, but on a fight for the minds, for the brains of the Poles. They has been publishing underground pamphlets, you may say in English, kind of a samizdat, and publications that has been outside the control of a government, printed at homes, at the in hidden print shops, in the basement, for example, in houses, in some garages, hidden against the espionage of a ruling communist party. The places where the truth about what is going in a communism and what is wrong with a communism and what is happening truly in the West, in order to uncover the machinations of a communism agenda and communism government, has been used as a tool, as this form of a fight for freedom of Poles. So we are working on a card game, which we would like to publish in a box similar to this, depicting this fight for freedom. We also are thinking on a very modern approach to board games, because we would like to publish this game also in a form of application you could play in your browser. Because it's a card game, it will have some amounts of text on the cards. It is making harder to create a fully bilingual game for paper publishing. If you would like to publish Eagle in a bilingual form, it's not a problem. We have a bilingual text on the bottom. This game contains only a map and some pounds, and we don't have too much necessary text that needs to be translated. In case of a card games like this Independence, for example, if you have a look at a card in the Independence, I need to open the box again, I apologize. You may see we tried to remove as much text as possible. We have many symbols, many icons on the cards, but still we have a title which is in Polish, and which, if you don't know Polish, you could play, but you will have a problem with access to a name of this card, and you will have the problem with accessing what this card depicts actually. So if we create the game as in a form of a electronic application playable in a web browser, everyone could access this game in many languages, because the only thing we need to provide is a translation that might be applied to a game just in flight, and you might open it and switch to English or German or French, whatever suits you best. So that's the future. We are thinking on a we appreciate the pen and paper on the paper cardboard games, because these are a great tool, also helping people meet. But we also appreciate technology, and we see that there are spaces it might help us reach older audiences. So we would like to develop also in digital media, as well as we still develop paper games in a paper form. This paper form is much better suited to a classroom. It's much better suited to a needs of, for example, families which would like to have some contact with their relatives, and glass screen sometimes is a barrier which we would like to remove, and this paper games still works very well in terms of joining people together. And joining people and sharing with them a history is also something that is interesting us very much. I think my presentation comes to an end. If you have any questions, please ask them in mail through the coordinator of our program. And what else? I would like to wish you well, stay safe, and I hope we'll see someday in person. Goodbye.